Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the final session of the 13th annual meeting of the Science and Technology in Society Forum. First things first, I am not Harriet Wahlberg. The chairman of this session had to stay behind in Sweden, could not attend, so I've been asked to stand in for Harriet. We also have one of our panel members who is due this morning, the governor of the prefecture, Kenji Yamada, but he had to attend a funeral this morning and will be joining us hopefully before the end of the session, but we're flexible people and we'll make this work. I will first introduce the panel and then make some introductory comments of my own before turning over to the guest speakers. In addition to Governor Yamada, who's governor of the prefecture and our host here in Kyoto, we have Laksane Plangsang Mas, who is the governor of the Thailand Institute of Scientific and Technological Research. We also have, sitting to her right, Sir Tim Hunt, Emeritus Group Leader of the Francis Crick Institute and a Nobel laureate. And of course, we have our leader and my good friend, Omi-san. Omi-san, thank you for your leadership and your friendship. So I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to challenge not this panel, but future panelists to leave the prepared speeches behind, to get out from behind the desks and behind the podiums, and to engage in a conversation with all of us. So sure, you have to educate and inform. We're not all experts in all of these areas. We do need to understand your field and your point of view, but I think we do that more effectively in a conversation rather than a prepared speech, quite frankly, many of which start to kind of sound the same after all. So this is meant to be an example of a different way of doing things, which I think is what science is all about. It's increasingly data analytics, but that's not the real value of science. The real value of science is thinking differently about concepts and ideas that can change the world and improve humankind. So I've left my prepared speech behind. I do have some notes on a piece of paper that was by the telephone in the hotel room, and I've written 3 words on it. The first is the word end, E-N-D, with a slash through it. The second is Kyoto, and the third is change. So this is not the beginning of this forum, but I hope it's not the end either. It is the final session, but my hope for all of you is that you continue the discussion. Continue the friendships that you either initiated here or that you reinforced in your meetings with other people here. Continue those relationships. Don't wait until 12 months from now. And continue the conversation. There's many things that sparked our interest and our fascination and our own inspiration of the potential for some of the ideas that were discussed here. Don't leave that. Continue your investigation and discussion of those ideas. So this is not the beginning. It's not the end. Hopefully it's the end of the beginning, and this then becomes a continuous process in which all of us work together to achieve very important things. I have the word Kyoto on my list to remind me, first of all, to thank the governor of Kyoto when he arrives for being such a wonderful host for our meeting, not only this year, but over the last 13 years. And I think he's been the governor, actually, for a good number of those years. But it also reminds me of what a wonderful city this is. This is one of the world's masterpieces. And the feeling I'm left with is I'm afraid history won't judge our generation, the 2 or maybe 3 generations that have participated in this forum, very kindly. We're the first generation in history which is going to leave a less attractive future for the next generation than we inherited from our parents and grandparents. The first time in history in terms of overall lifespan, in terms of economic opportunity. It's actually looking like the debt we are taking on, the hole we're digging for ourselves, could actually mean our children's and grandchildren's inheritance will be less than what we benefited from, and that's kind of a sad thought. But for the first time in 13 years at this session, I see some hope. I think at the 113th session of the Science and Technology and Society Forum, which may well have a Mars branch at that point, people might say these were pretty smart people. You know, they actually did something that turned out to be really important. So what inspired me? Why do I feel so positive all of a sudden? Well, interestingly enough, it's not ICT. You know, we all carry these wonderful devices with us that connect us to the world, but I saw here today that the challenge of who owns the data, what your responsibilities are for authorized use of the data, what your responsibilities are for protecting the data. To me, that's an enormous hill that's going to have to be climbed before we actually realize the potential. And I have no doubt that in society 15.0 or whatever it is sometime in the future, ICT will have an enormous impact on the shape of that society. But I don't see it happening in the near term. Somewhat paradoxically, given my own background, not so much as chairman of Moody's, which is my current job, but the almost 50 years now I spent in the healthcare industry, it's not healthcare either. There's some wonderful technology being discussed here, from editing of the human genome to induced pluripotent stem cells. There's wonderful technology available. But I've learned the hard way that in an industry where 80% of your projects fail, it's kind of difficult to fall in love with the next great thing, because you'll be very disappointed when it's failed. What has inspired me, to my great surprise, is the idea of the autonomous vehicle. Now, when I grew up, a car was not transportation. When you became 16 and got your driver's license, some of us had our own car. It was freedom. And we didn't use our car to go from A to B. We went from A to A. We went out, we went cruising, we met our friends. It was freedom. It was different. And the more powerful and the faster that car was, the better. And I like to drive. So the idea of an autonomous vehicle, to me, was, you know, what would you need such a thing for? I enjoy driving. I got in my car for the experience of driving. And now we're going to take that away from me. So I started off very negative here. But the more I thought about that, and the more that I saw the interconnectivity of climate change and smart cities, and a number of things kind of fit into place for me. And what that was the idea that rather than having what we see around us, you know, the next couple of days as you drive around, walk around, just look around you. And what you'll see is 90% of the cars you see are not being used. They're lined up alongside the street, they're sitting in parking lots. Not a very efficient system when you think about it. So if we could get to the point where, for transportation, I could use my cell phone to call up a vehicle that would be outside this place when I got here and took me to the hotel or took me to Tokyo, we wouldn't need as many cars. So those parking lots could be turned into parks. The streets, which are now lined with cars, could be turned into pedestrian walkways. And the more I thought about this, the more intrigued I became. Now, you may notice I didn't say it's autonomous cars that have struck my fancy. It's autonomous vehicles. So the point is to go from A to B, from here to Tokyo. You don't need a road. You know, we have these little drones that will fly you up there. So sometime in the future, I suspect the potential is that we get into our vehicle and it transports us to wherever it is we want to go without using a road. So all of the roads we have in the countryside can now be now converted to more productive use for agriculture and other purposes. And then the more I thought about the city is an open system. Energy escapes from the city. Pollution escapes from the city. Well, if we don't need cars on the roads, we can cover the roads. We can make this a closed system, much more efficient in terms of energy, emission, recycling. The world changes all of a sudden. You know, physics tells us that an open system, if you're doing mass balance in chemistry, for example, it's much easier to do that in a closed system than it is an open system. So now we've got a city which is a closed system. And the cities don't have to be in Tokyo or New York. They could be anywhere. They could be in the desert. They could be floating on an ocean somewhere or a lake. They could be on Mars. So I've just kind of become intrigued by the impact, the potential impact of this bit of technology, which is the autonomous driving vehicle, and how it can connect to so many different things. So hopefully in this discussion here, we can find a way to take our problems, climate change, and apply technology in a way that at least I didn't think about. And who cares about the climate? You know, we're in our own little climate. We're in our own little environment, and if you want to go out and experience nature, you can do that, but we can protect the environment by keeping us away from it for most of our economic activity. So to me, that was kind of an enlightenment, and will it happen in my lifetime? No. Will it happen in time for the 113th meeting of the Science and Technology Forum? I bet it will. I bet it will. I think our world is going to look remarkably different because of science and technology. Now, the last note on my little piece of paper is change. Something that's not changing is dead. The best definition I've heard of death is no more change. So don't fight it. Don't be surprised. Things are going to change. And if you think about our first meeting here in Kyoto, I don't think we could have had any of these discussions 13 years ago. We were all carrying BlackBerries, at least some of us were, which allowed us to make phone calls and send messages. We didn't have the capability of our smartphones. They weren't introduced until about 3 years later. So the whole discussion of big data would have been kind of sterile, because 95% of that data hadn't been created yet. So I wouldn't be at all surprised that 13 years from now, we're going to see as dramatic a change. Now, the challenge is, and what we need to really spend some time on, is how do we encourage, facilitate, manage that change without getting overwhelmed by the shadows of technology? How do we not destroy our climate, our environment, on the way to doing that? And lots of things. You could have a long list. Research on the brain shows that we're programmed to multitask, but once you get beyond 3 tasks, efficiency on everything deteriorates. You can do 3 things at a time. You can be watching me, you can be looking at your smartphone, and you can be thinking about dinner tonight, but if you add a 4th thing, you are not very effective on all 4. So I like short lists. So I boiled it down to one thing. One thing I think we could do that would make a real difference in the effective, not easy, it's going to be hard work, there's going to be failures, but the effective use of science and technology in improving the state of humankind. It's actually 2 things, but it's the same thought. The first is we need more science in politics. We don't need politicians making speeches that are disconnected from real data, real science. And the second thing we need, which is your job, is we need less politics in science. Thank you. So I will turn over our next speaker from Thailand.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulations to Dr. Osumi from Tokyo Institute of Technology, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine. And I would like to thank you for inviting me to speak today. I have to say that I have to stay behind the podium because I'm so new to this STS forum. This is my first time. The point I would like to make the address, the first one is the importance of science and technology collaboration, which I think that it's very important that we do that to cope up with the common issues among our regions and also the countries in the world. There are many issues such as energy, food, infection disease, health in aging society, environment, and so on. But collaboration may be difficult without a platform like STS Forum today. I think it's very beneficial to me at participating at this the first time. I see a lot of the conversation and exchanging of thoughts and ideas among scientists and also industry as well. So I think this kind of conversation can create collaboration in the future. In consequence to that, STS also hosted STS ASEAN-Japan workshop last June in Bangkok, Thailand. So it's also very beneficial as well. We have topics, many topics discussion in the workshop. And at that time, Mr. Omikaili came to the workshop and encouraged the scientists to have more conversation from their research expertise and also how can we move to future. And also in Bangkok, in September, we also have the ASEAN and Science Technology Innovation Forum. That is another conversation among people in science, technology, and innovation to have a chance to discuss about the policy and also the plan that we move forward to. The second issue that I would like to address from that I have learned is the issues about the environmental. I think environmental is very important for our sustainability. So I have learned that many countries in different parts of the world are now actively implementing different programs using science technology. For example, the green technology to reduce polluted waste in order to minimize their adverse impacts on human health and also the environment. Anyway, we still have a lot of work to do, especially in my country. We also have a program about this kind of green industry, and we have a lot of work to do to initiate the industry to manufacture using the green technology so that we can have a safe environment to our society. The last issue that I would like to address, I think that even though we have the advanced technology, a lot of advanced technology, but human is very important. So human resource development, I think, is another issue that I would like to address. Knowledge and skills, especially in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, should be promoted in order to create lifelong learning and innovation-based society, which people could develop their self-sufficiency capability and could cope up with new technology, such as we heard a lot of artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, and so on. I would like to conclude my talk that with the collaborations among government, private sectors, academia, and research institutes, we can assure the better future for humankind, and no one is left behind. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Next, Sir Tim Hunt. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, Mr. Omi, for your kind invitation to the STS Forum. It's been a real treat coming here, and I've really learned an awful lot from the feast of ideas that have been discussed, and met extremely many very interesting people, as well as some old friends. It's been great fun. But I really wonder why they asked me to stand up at this final session, because I know a little bit about frogs' eggs, but I don't know much about, what is it now, development, sustainability, let alone the future of mankind. I mean, these are big topics. I know that I am going to die, and the bad news is that you're all going to die too. But none of us know when. This is an uncertain world. One of the things I learned, which is also very uncertain at this meeting, was how very little we know about our oceans. We know quite a lot about the sea close to the shores in most of our countries. We know a little bit about the surface. We know a little bit about the bottom. But in between the top and the bottom of the ocean are, on average, several kilometers of water which is almost wholly unexplored. We worry about fisheries. We're running out of fish to eat. We worry on Okinawa, where I come from, about seaweed, because runoff from the land might kill the seaweed crop. We worry, again on Okinawa, about the coral bleaching. But I suspect there are a lot of other things out there that we might have to worry about, because we simply don't know what's there. Not only don't we know, but we have no idea of what we don't know. Now, this is a real problem for politicians, because they kind of like things to be cut and dried. They kind of like you. If you're going to get some money from the taxpayers, you have to tell us, what are you going to get in return? And we can't answer that question. We're explorers. We don't know what we're going to find because we don't know what there is to find. It's impossible. And actually, I think this is a really important culture clash between the politicians and the bureaucrats on the one hand, and the irresponsible free spirits who are the scientists on the other side. If I may, I'd just like to read a little piece that my esteemed colleague Helga Novotny wrote about this. She talks about the establishment of the European Research Council, and she says the European Commission took a radical step by entrusting the setting up of the strategy for the new funding institution to a group of independent scientists. And they simply called for the best ideas, entirely bottom-up, no thematic priorities, and committed solely to scientific excellence. And she says, as my colleagues and I were soon to discover in setting up this council, the scientific culture of trust, which felt quite at ease with uncertainty, encountered an administrative culture of control with a very low tolerance for uncertainty. But she ends on an optimistic note. Gradually, however, against many odds and with some difficulties, the two sides managed to set up a world-class, and I would echo that, world-class research funding organization. But I want to come back to Mr. Omi. Many of you will know that at one time he held concurrently the posts of Minister for Okinawa and the Northern Territories and Minister for Science and Technology in the Japanese government. And he very sensibly decided to combine the two and to make Okinawa a great place to encourage science and technology, starting from almost nothing. So after extensive consultations, he decided to set up an entirely new institute, the Okinawa Institute for Science and Technology, which would be international, interdisciplinary, and would make radical departures from the traditional structure of Japanese universities. Now, I was lucky enough to be asked to join the Board of Governors at a stage when we were still participating in discussions as to exactly what the shape of this entity should be. And I'm happy to report that OIST is already a thriving and rapidly growing community of scholars with a fabulous view over the China Sea. Now, coming back to the oceans, OIST is one of the few places on Earth with a marine station that is backed by exceedingly well-equipped laboratories, wonderful microscopes, experts in all kinds of instrumentations, the ability to sequence, analyze, and interpret vast amounts of DNA, ecologists, developmental biologists, experts in currents and oceanographers, all perched on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. My wife and I have recently moved there, and I'm really excited to see what these folks will find out working together. I'm sure we're in for some surprises, and I wouldn't be surprised if research on the sea has quite considerable implications for life on land as well. Of course, I don't want to say that basic research is the only thing. OIST will also engage in applied research and has a strong strand of taking out discoveries which are made and to commercialize them. And I don't underestimate the difficulty of this either. I mean, actually, these developmental research is just as hard to do as basic research, maybe even harder. And it's important that it does it well, and it's important, too, that the youngsters who are trained, they need to be just as good at doing that kind of development work as when they were doing their PhDs. So thank you, Mr. Omi, for your remarkable vision and your extraordinary effectiveness and your ability to persuade, cajole, and inspire, and your deep understanding of the nature of our endeavors. We'll do our best to live up to your ambitious aims and try as hard as we can to tame the uncertain future through research. For surely it's better to know and understand than to remain in ignorance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. With perfect timing, Governor Yamada has arrived. The Honorable Mr. Kenji Yamada has been governor of this prefecture since 2002. What you may not know is when several of us were planning the first STS forum, the original idea was we might meet every second year. We learned in the first first meeting, that there was demand for a meeting every year. It was popular enough to do this every year, and of course, the hospitality of our host, the prefecture and city of Kyoto, and Governor Yamada was spectacular. So I think the first thing we should do is thank you, Governor, for your being such a gracious host. When I introduce people, I always like to tell you something about them that you may not know. Governor Yamada is very well known in Japan as the governor of Kyoto Prefecture. But what you might not know is Governor Yamada is also the president of the Association of the Governors of all the prefectures. So Governor Yamada is actually a governor of governors, a job I don't wish on anybody. Governor Yamada. Thank you.
As Governor of Kyoto Prefecture, I'd like to thank Founder and Chairman, Mr. Omi, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, all the Secretariat and related staff, and everyone at venue and here in attendance for all their support and spending the past 3 days here in Kyoto. I'm Keiji Yamada, the Governor of Kyoto Prefecture. As well as being Governor of Kyoto Prefecture, as mentioned, I also have the honor of being President of the National Governors Association. I don't think I'm not the Governor of Governors. On behalf of all the governors of Japan, I'd like to express my great respect I have for all of you, for your contribution to discussions on the science and technology of the future. Local governments around the country are currently facing many challenges. In particular, there are 2 challenges of sustainability. The first being the aging society. The second, the environment. With regard to our society, Japan has one of the most rapidly aging populations in the world. There are over 65,000 centenarians, who is at least 100 years in the country, of which more than 1,500 live in Kyoto Prefecture, doubling from only 10 years ago. This is perhaps a good example of the light and shadow of science and technology. Japan can be proud of our long life expectancy rates. However, by 2050, there will be 38 million people over 65, but only 53 million people between 15 and 65. The dark reality is that there will only be 1.4 people to support each elderly person in the country, a double-edged sword for Japan. One thing we can do to overcome this is to create an environment where people who want to work can still work even as they get older. In particular, AI and robotics technology that can help elderly people to continue working is very important. However, Japan is increasingly becoming not only an aging society, but also disconnected society. As the innovation and communications develop at a rapid pace, some people are left behind and are left with no one care for them, ultimately sometimes dying alone. We cannot let this trend continue, and that is one of our hopes for the future. Another issue is our birth rate. Japan's birth rate is 1.46, which is very low, alongside countries like Italy and Korea. If we cannot raise our birth rate, we will not be able to sustain our aging society in the future. The government is even trying to encourage konkatsu, the act of searching for marriage partner, including attending matchmaking parties. However, the reality is not that easy. If anyone here can find a way to draw these Japanese back from the virtual world to reality, then I am eagerly awaiting news of your technology, like Pokemon Go. The second challenge we face is the environment. Although you are standing in one of Japan's largest cities, you can perhaps see the sustainability we have here. Over the centuries, Kyoto has not only developed from the blessing of the nature you see around us, but alongside it as well, Kyoto is a place that symbolizes Japan with its history, its food, and tradition. This culture has in turn given birth to ways of life and techniques that ultimately become technology. However, no region's environment is solely a product of itself, and Kyoto is no exception. The greater environment is made up of regional environments, which in turn affect each other as a collective. Each place gives rise to its own form of development, and only by joining together can we achieve our greatest potential and realize a truly sustainable society. The environment knows no borders, and nor should regional governments. Every year, children from Kyoto visit our sister city in China to help plant trees. This is not just to help China, but to help combat air pollution all over the world. In this sense, although there may still be darkness in the realms of science, and perhaps barriers between nations, there should be no hurdles between regional governments. Regional governments have great potential to help achieve a sustainable society. Building bridges of cooperation on a regional level as well as on an international level is a key to achieving our goal of sustainability. And I sincerely hope that we have many more regional representatives join us at future STS Forum. Kyoto Prefecture and all of the local government in Japan continue to plant trees. I expect that everyone here continue to do the same as well. In closing, I very much hope to see as many people here in Kyoto again next year. And I thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Finally, if you don't know our next speaker, you're probably in the wrong meeting. A true visionary, our leader, a man who needs no introduction, and my friend, Koji Omi. Thank you, Omi.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I have to take note that I'm very happy that Japan's Dr. Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as founder and chairman of STS Forum, I'd like to express my deepest appreciation to the leaders from all over the world attending the 13th meeting of the forum. Your great contributions have made our meeting very successful. I hope that our discussions over the past 2.5 days have generated new insight. The STS Forum has grown from a mere conference into a movement for global leaders in policy making, business, and academia to discuss science and technology in society. We must expand the contributions of the STS Forum by strengthening the rights and controlling the shadows of science and technology. The statement distributed to you, which was agreed upon by Council members, describes the broad outline of our discussion at this year's meeting. Some of the major points are as follows. Sustainability in energy and all other aspects of human life is an ever-present challenge. We must discuss effective ways to develop energy sources while ensuring sustainability, and we look to the development of new and renewable energies to achieve a low-carbon society. Nuclear energy as a low-carbon energy source should remain as an important option from the long-term perspective under the condition of safety, security, and non-proliferation. Where the natural world is concerned, we must make better use of our resources. Food production must be drastically increased, and science and technology for that purpose should be promoted. This includes the use of GMOs. In the field of life sciences, milestone achievements have led to breakthroughs in human health and agriculture, while further progress in personalized and preemptive medicine is expected. All parties need to be aware of the human health, safety, and ethical issues. The prevalence of antibody-resistant microbes also presents a real threat. International collaboration should be improved to solve this problem. ICT has contributed to economic development of daily life. On the other hand, security and privacy have become critical issues. Global level ICT measures might be necessary to address this problem, and we'll continue to discuss about this. Science and technology is vital for the solution of these issues and should not be dealt with only by professionals. Policymakers and business leaders should also contribute to their solution. I firmly believe that the STS Forum is playing a growing role in bringing together leaders in policymaking, business, and academia to discuss the future of humanity. To nurture the younger generation, we have established an STS Forum Future Leader Program involving more than 100 active younger leaders. We will further expand this program in the next year. We will also promote and encourage the participation of more women in our activities. I strongly hope that more world leaders in policymaking, business, and academia will spread the message through their own networks so that our movement can contribute to the dialogue on science and technology. We will build on and expand the network we have established to further address the opportunities and challenges facing humanity. I look forward to your continued participation in our annual meeting and hope that you will encourage others to join us as well. Our next annual meeting will be held here in Kyoto from Sunday, October 1st to Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017. I look forward to all of us gathering here again next year in order to pave the way for the future generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Omi-san. Thank you, Omi-san, and please join me in thanking our panel. Thank you. Please. Thank you, Omi-san. Well, you've got a standing ovation, Omi-san.